Hey all, and welcome to today's Rev Staff Q&A. I'm Rice Schuler, your Community Program Manager. If you're on the forums, you've probably seen me there as Rye-Rev. Today we'll be talking with everyone about security. We'll have several members of Rev's staff here to chat with you and answer your questions. Today we're joined by Jason, but in addition to Jason, we also have Rev's Head of Security, Brian, and we also have Robin, a Product Manager for the Revver experience. So Jason, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Right, thank you for the intro. It's good to be back here talking to everybody. As you guys recall, we did this sort of event for the first time in late 2019. And at the time, we promised to do these events 4 times a year. I'll first start by owning a mistake. We've only done 2 of these today. This is our 3rd. So we're a little behind schedule. We are going to try this year to catch up and deliver 4 before the end of the year. So we're planning to do another one next month. And we haven't finalized the topic, although we have a good idea. I always welcome input. We welcome input from you guys on what you want to hear. These events are not for me, they're for you. And so if any of you would like to email me, jason@rev.com, and tell me what topics you'd like to see covered in a future Q&A, we will read everything you send us, and probably what we'll do is identify the most popular topics and talk about them. So please tell us what you want to cover. Today is about security, and the format for these is we're going to focus on security. Everything today is going to be about security. And next time we speak, we'll talk about some different topic that's not security. But we're going to try and stay focused on the topic while we're here. The big change, obviously, in the world since we last spoke is the pandemic. I think as we spoke, the pandemic was just starting, and I want to start off by wishing well to all of you and your families. I know that this is a difficult time for everybody in different ways. It's been a major health challenge. I know. I'm sure plenty of you know people that have been sick. Some of you may have gotten sick. You may have lost loved ones. We've had in my family a few people got sick. We had a second cousin that died from COVID, and so I know that this virus is real and nasty, and our thoughts and prayers go out to anybody who's been affected like that. Certainly, the change in the world is one that has brought work from home to the front page of every newspaper. Work from home is a theme that we've been thinking about since day 1 of Rev, and all of you clearly believe working from home is a good idea, and the world is kind of catching up to where we've been for a while. And so it's interesting to see this trend go mainstream. I think that it's pretty clear to me that the pandemic makes our mission more important than ever. Our mission is to create great work from home jobs powered by AI, and these kind of jobs let you work from home. These kind of jobs let you work in a place where you don't have to wear a mask, where you're not going to catch the virus probably in your pajamas on your couch. And I don't know what the future holds. Hopefully there's no more viruses, although maybe there will be at some point. Regardless, working on Rev gives you the opportunity to be your own boss and take your job with you, whether it's to your house or whether you want to move. Your work can follow you, and we think that's a good model. And we hope it's worked for all of you. We've certainly. I'll talk a little bit about how the business has performed since the pandemic. There's been a lot of changes. I mean, as we mentioned on our last call, a lot more people have been wanting to work on Rev than we have slots for, because the world is full of folks that want a flexible, convenient job you can do in your pajamas, and that's what Rev offers. And so we've definitely had to restrict applications more than in the past, because we've been flooded, overwhelmed with people that want to work. And that also, I want to plant the seed for something in the future that also has this thinking on how can we be better at figuring out who of our applicants is going to be successful within Rev. And we don't have the perfect answer to that, but I can tell you that we have people within the company thinking about and working on how we can be more selective in the right ways, meaning how can we identify earlier on who's going to be successful? Because we think that Rev is better off in every way if we're more selective on who we admit and why. The business is doing fine. Frankly, business is doing well in many ways. We have 5 or 6 different product lines. One of them has seen volume reduced versus what it would have been. Our transcription business was the most negatively affected by the pandemic. In contrast, our caption business has grown quite a bit. And the reason why is fairly simple. A lot of transcription, human transcription, is based on transcribing audio that's recorded in the field. We do a lot of work for people either in Hollywood or in the media who are recording conversations in person or filming movies. Certainly, movie production has largely stopped in most developed countries. And so raw footage, which we used to get a lot of, we're not getting much of. Probably that will resume whenever filming returns. I don't think we've seen a permanent change there. I think we've seen that our business is part of the economy, and when parts of the economy shut down, we see less demand from those parts of the economy. That's the downside. The upside is that video has grown in every possible way. There's more video everywhere than there was just 6 months ago. There's more video in media. Video production media is up. There's more video in education. There's video in everywhere from colleges to K-12. There's video now in more corporate settings. Events are moving to video. Events that were once held in person, those conferences that people used to hold in Las Vegas and New Orleans are now becoming webinars. So the world is moving to video, and we are striving to follow those trends. We spend half our time, if not more than half our time, working not with Revvers but with customers. By working with customers to meet their needs, we're able to get business that creates jobs for all of you. And if I were to highlight a couple trends in the business, I mentioned that video is big and everything that comes from video is growing a lot. So for example, our captioning business has grown very quickly. And we saw this trend emerging in March and April. And as a result, we decided to change our plans. At the beginning of 2020, we had a plan for the year. And when the pandemic started hitting and we realized the world was changing, we changed our plans. So we had an old plan and we ripped it up and we created a new plan. And the new plan was focused on trying to meet the world where it was going. The world is moving towards video and remote communication. So we said, we're going to move towards video and remote communication. And we did that in 2 ways. The first is we looked to see where we could get new customers and new demand. And we saw the whole world moving to a video conference platform called Zoom, which I'm sure you guys are all aware of by now. And we built a new product for the Zoom platform called Rev Live Captions for Zoom. This product does automated AI transcriptions of Zoom meetings. And why am I mentioning it to you? It doesn't create today any work for Revvers because it's all done with AI. Well, a number of reasons. We're getting more customers through this product that's very successful. A lot of companies are using Rev Live Captions for Zoom. And A, we're going to get customers that may have needs for human services. B, we are working to build out our products for Zoom. And we are in the earliest stages of trying to design products that would allow Zoom customers to not only get automated captions, but to order human captions or subtitles for the meetings that they have that are important, where quality matters. We've seen a lot of customers that ask for this, and it's a relatively new thing for us to build on a third-party platform like Zoom. It creates some questions because we don't control the Zoom platform, so we're working with that company and we're trying to find ways to better serve Zoom customers. But I mention it to share with you that we are working hard to get more customers that would have more work for you guys. The other major change that we made since the pandemic and since realizing that video is where the world's going is we shifted our team that works on the Revver experience from transcription to captions. For most of the last 2 years, we made dramatic improvements in the transcription Revver experience. The most significant change we made in the Revver experience and transcription was we brought in AI. Those of you who've been a Revver for more than a couple of years know that In the old days, you used to type from scratch. Now in transcription, on many files, you can see a draft that the AI created and edited. We had built that out in transcription. It took us some time to iron out the kinks. And once the pandemic hit, we decided, you know what? It's time to do that, to bring the AI draft to captions. And so we've done that. Our AI, or rather a caption tool is called Dash. And we now have within Dash the ability for Revvers to get a AI draft and to edit it. And we've heard reports of many Revvers saying that it's saving them a lot of time, a very significant amount of time. And we're going to keep improving that product. But that's an example of how when the world changes, when the market changes, we change. And we're making other improvements in the caption experience, although the AI draft is the most significant change. For those of you that have not tried captioning, I would encourage you to give it a shot. You may recall that in a prior discussion, we mentioned that if you are a Revver or Revver Plus, I may be getting the details wrong, you can reapply the captions if you've applied in the past. So if you've applied the captions and you got rejected, try again. There's a lot of working captions. It's growing fast, and we want to give all of you guys more opportunities. Let me one more update before we talk about security. The other update is that we hired an executive whose title is Chief Revenue Officer. And the gentleman's name is Wade Burgess, and he came to us from a few companies, including LinkedIn, and he runs our sales and marketing teams. Why do I mention this? I mention it because it shows that we are trying to expand and mature our sales force so that we can better sell to and serve large corporations. And why are we doing that? We're doing that to get more revenue, more volume, more work for all of you. We, again, back to our mission, is to create great work from home jobs. Our jobs are flexible, but as some of you know, we don't always have all the work you want every hour of the day. And if you're Revver Plus, you have a lot of work most of the time. If you're Revver, you have less steady work. As I think about what is it that Revvers value, I believe that Revvers value selection, that is wide selection of jobs, and stability. You want to have the knowledge that if you show up to work any time of day, there's going to be jobs for you to do. The more that we're able to sell to large companies, including the Fortune 500, the more we're going to get a wide selection of work, and the more we're going to be able to give you guys stability, in the sense that I want people to know that in a perfect world, whether it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or the middle of the spring, we want there to be work all the time. So by trying to sell to large companies, we are trying to get more volume, more selection, more stability, more work for you guys. Which brings me to security. Large companies care about security. They want good security. We've made investments in security every year that we've been around, and we are accelerating those investments. We're taking it more seriously than ever. In a minute, you'll be hearing from a gentleman named Byrne, who we recently hired as our first ever head of security. In a prior life, he led security for a company called Benefits Focus, that was a benefits company that had a lot of systems around benefits, where you can imagine security is very important for benefits because you're dealing with health information. And he led security for that company, and they grew a lot and went public while he was there. We felt like he would help us to really improve and mature our security practices so that we can grow and thrive, and ultimately, attract and earn the trust of the world's largest corporations, because we think that we want to get more volume from more companies so we have more work for everybody. We go into this with our eyes open, realizing that when you invest in security, there are going to be trade-offs. For example, whenever we all have to deal with passwords. Passwords can be a pain in the butt. But let me just start with that as an example. Passwords are friction that slows you down, and it's easier to have a password like 123, but a password like 123 doesn't give you much security. And so, what's one thing that all of you guys can do to improve, Rev security, is to have a unique password, and better yet, to use multi-factor authentication, which means you need to have an app on your phone before you log in. All Rev employees use two-factor authentication before we log in. Before I log in to Revver.com, I have to go on my phone and get this code. It's a pain in the butt, but it helps our security. And I would encourage all of you to do so. And there's a benefit to you. There have been a very small number of cases where a Revver used a password that they used across the internet and someone logs into their account. We don't want that to happen. So the way to protect yourself and your security is to have a good password. That's an example of an area where there's friction. It'd be easier to have no password, but passwords are helpful, so I think you guys all know. We've made changes for security. We're going to make more. Brian's going to tell you about at least one major upcoming change that will affect you guys in security. And I can't promise that we'll always do what you want us to do, but I can promise that we will listen to your concerns and feedback. Some security changes will inconvenience some of you. It is our intention to minimize that inconvenience. In a perfect world, someone that's honest and doing hard work, we'd like them to have no impact. We want them to be unaffected, and we want the security work to only affect the people that are less than totally honest. That's the intention. That said, there's going to be trade-offs, and that means as we roll out changes, we're going to ask you guys to tell us, how does this affect you? We want to design the changes in a way that it affects you the least. As a company, we're very transparent. We talk a lot about what we're doing and why. We have built a forum where we invite you guys to ask a million questions, and we answer a lot of them, as many as we can. Security is a little different, though. We're not going to be totally open kimono. If you got a security system for your house, you wouldn't put the code in your front door. We will talk about some of our security projects, but not all of them, because to do so would undermine our security. So that's something that I want you guys to keep in mind. When you don't hear the answer you love, I want you to understand that where this comes from, the place this comes from is we want to grow security so we get more business, so we have more selection for all of you. It is my objective for this call that I would like Revvers to feel at the end of it that security is something we're doing for you rather than to you. We're not trying to make anyone's life difficult. If we have, let us know, and we'll look at what we can do to improve it. As some of the questions indicate, and you'll see the questions in a moment, I think it's clear that Revvers want to work at a place where honest work is rewarded, and where bad work and dishonest behavior is penalized. That's what I believe Revvers want, because people want to work in a place with high standards. So with that as a backdrop, let me turn it over to Brian, who will talk a little bit about what security means and how we're thinking about it here at Rev.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Byrne. I'm the head of security at Rev. And just to give a little background on myself, I started with Rev in April. I've spent the last 20 plus years in technology, the last 15 in focusing on cybersecurity. And as was said, I've been focused on software as a service platforms, specifically in the healthcare industry, and then previous to that with the Department of Defense. One of the things I want to talk about is, why I'm passionate about security. I find the fact that cybersecurity is constantly changing and becoming more difficult, day in and day out. Attackers are always finding new ways to get into systems, and their creativity is truly endless. That's something I find very energizing, and in truth, it's an arms race. There's, for whatever the attackers do, we build a defense or a new process that defends against it, and it just is a continuous thing. Also, one of my favorite things about security is that it's not something that you just put away at the end of the day. We all go home to our own computers and our own cell phones and our own data that we have to protect. And so it's something that impacts us. It's part of the ubiquitous part of modern life, about handling data and how to do it appropriately. So to talk about some of the general philosophy that I have and that we have about security at Rev, security is of paramount concern to our customers, and it's increasingly so. The public, same situation. People want to know that the businesses they work with, that they're customers of, are doing the right thing. So there's an expectation by our customers that we're always securely and appropriately managing their data. There's also increasing scrutiny on the state, federal, and international level from a regulator perspective. That's something that continuously, is advancing as well. So the bar is constantly being raised for us from a security perspective, and it's something that we are going to continue to be diligent about making sure that we're doing the appropriate things. But one of the things that I love about this is that this pressure that we get or are receiving is also an opportunity for them, and a huge one in my opinion. There are customers out there who are expecting the best security possible, and they're willing to pay for it. So there's opportunity for us to continuously improve our security and to be more attractive to larger customers to get their work because we have that level of security. And this is something that we can even it's a win-win because it's more opportunity for the Revvers, more success for the company, and ultimately the customer gets the benefit across the board. Now, to talk specifically about some changes that we've made, I want to talk first about orphaned accounts. And what do I mean by orphaned accounts? So we've had Revver accounts that haven't been active for more than 6 months. And one thing we've been doing to make sure we're maintaining these is to send a message out to the owner of that account after it's not been used for 6 months, and just asking them to update their password if they're still using the account. So this doesn't limit anybody from doing any work. It's just a reminder that if you are still active and want to use the account, just make sure you're updating your password, and it's always going to be there for you. We're also limiting downloads, and this is a response to tighter controls from our customers. And when we work with them in contracting, there's just a higher bar to achieve. And so we have limited that. This also helps us reduce fraud and abuse. And so this is just one of the ways that we're improving. Another way is we're working on introducing ID verification. And so this is, again, just another feature that we can add that our customers are looking for and asking for actively. And it's something that will also continue to reduce the fraud and abuse. It'll also, when people who do the fraud and abuse, when they recognize that we have these controls in place, the expectation is that we're going to see those numbers go down because we have these advanced controls in place. Also, just to talk more broadly about security and cybersecurity, how it is these days in the modern world. Unfortunately, there's always people out there who are looking constantly for ways to subvert systems, to get into systems, and convert their ability to get into those systems into to basically monetize data illegally. And so that's something that we have to continuously be aware of and continue to develop a defense in depth. We have multiple layers of security protecting customer data. One thing I want to point out too is that there's those people, those bad actors. It's extremely likely, and I expect that there's bad actors watching this video currently right now. And what they're doing is watching this video, hoping that something will be revealed that's going to help them get into Rev to do harm and do those bad things. That's something called open source intelligence, and it's common practice these days for those types of bad actors. So with that, I appreciate your time, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Brian. I think now let's pull up the questions, and we're going to go through the questions on Slido. They're sorted in descending order based upon who got the most votes. And so we're going to tackle your top questions first. And I'll have Brian answer some, Robin answer others, and I'll answer a few as well. So I'm going to wait till we see the photos or the questions. Here we go. If Rev does require IDs, how will it be kept secure? How will it be stored? And will we be able to remove the data from the system if we so choose? Brian, why don't you tackle this one?
Sure, certainly. So we're definitely going to use a third party that's going to do this work, this verification piece, and that data is going to stay at that third party. It's not something that's going to enter into the Rev data systems. And as far as removal of that data, there's a feature built in, and that's a normal function, the removal of that data when necessary. So when we do move to that, if there's a reason or need to remove that data, that is something that can be done.
Yeah, and Brian, do you want to go ahead and mention the vendor that we're leaning towards using there? I mean, I don't mind sharing the information with people because that way they can do more research if they want.
Sure. So the organization that we're looking at, and it's probably primary right now, is called Persona, and they're an organization that, after looking at them closely, they've got the right type of internal control, something that's very important to us as to Rev and also to our customers. That we feel confident that they're at that level that's necessary to be able to be trusted with this type of data.
Yeah, I want to clarify that we're not designing the ID verification process. The company Persona has done so. Our team believes that they're the best out there at that. Their website is withpersona.com, so you can look at it if you want to learn about it. And this is an area where we're going to defer to the experts. Next question. Not all clients have the same security requirements. Have you considered another tier of Revvers, security cleared, to handle the more sensitive files? Absolutely, we've considered this. We've definitely spoken. Clients have been giving us a lot of feedback in a lot of directions. Some clients would like to get a higher tier of quality and pay more for it. Others want more stability in who does their work. Others want higher security. You could certainly imagine one day us having folks with security clearances, perhaps with US government security clearances. That could be a subset. We have clients that come to us with medical work and they'd like people that are HIPAA certified in a way or they comply rather with medical rules. So we are moving in the direction of having tiers of Revvers, subpools that would allow people to find in some cases higher paying jobs with additional requirements. I don't have anything definitive to report there. It'll probably be some time because we have a lot of irons in the fire, but we're moving in that direction. And you should see the fact that we hired a security leader in Brian, the fact that we're getting ID verification as a first step in the direction of raising our bar on security. And these kinds of changes will likely come over time, but nothing in the short term. All right, next question. Robin, why don't you read this one and tackle the next question about unclaiming files?
Sure. So the question is, we were told that not being able to see who has unclaimed a file previously, and why is that a security concern? So that was taken away. How is that a security concern? So a few months ago, we did make a few changes to the project details page, one of which is what's described here. Overall, we did this for security, but this specific change isn't for the customer security, but for Rev security. So we knew that a lot of bad actors were looking through these logs and trying to figure out what rules we had in place in order to better scam us essentially. And so we decided, we weighed the options. We know that some people are using this for valid purposes, but at the end of the day, the risk of the scammers is just way too high. So we decided to remove this for our security.
Thank you, Robin. Next question, I'll take it. We all know there are some bought and sold accounts. It's unfair to those of us who earned accounts. Can Rev protect us from the scammers? I love this question. I think the framing is right. Those of you, the vast majority who do great work and who worked really hard to be successful here, can only, I think, feel some combination of annoyance or resentment if you see that somebody is not doing a good job and somebody bought their account instead of earning it. We think this is bad for everybody, for the customer, for Rev, and for the overwhelming majority of honest, hardworking Revvers. So we are about to clean house in the process, and there's a couple of ways we're doing that. I won't share all the specifics, but ultimately, ID verification will, we think, largely make this kind of behavior impossible. So we are going to make large changes intended to make these kinds of bad behavior no longer possible. So those that do good work should find Rev to be better in every way. And folks that want to buy or sell accounts will be, we hope, disappointed. All right, next question. Brian, please tackle this one.
Sure. So the question is, are Revvers going to have to upload their IDs, driver's license, and or have to undergo a background check to begin or continue to work for Rev. So to be clear, that the addition of ID verification is really just one thing. There isn't going to be a background check associated with this. This is really just the ID verification that's being added. And that, you know, the ID verification will require documents like driver's licenses or possibly passports. And this is something that's going to be required. We'll be rolling it out over a period of time, but it eventually will be a requirement.
Yeah, that's right. And I think to be super clear about that, you know, a background check can mean many things. It typically means a check of your criminal record. We are not doing that. What we're doing is we want to make sure that you are who you say you are. And Persona is the likely partner to do that. And we believe that verifying IDs will make Rev more secure for everybody. And it only works if it is a requirement. It's not optional, right? So if there are valid reasons why somebody can't come up with an ID to verify themselves, we'll look at it. But our posture is to make this a requirement that is not optional, because that's how you improve security. Next question is about coupons. So we do have coupons that our marketing team uses to let new customers try our services. As some of you guys have reported, there's definitely, you know, some significant bad behavior around these coupons, and we are cracking down on it. I don't want to give away too many details right now, but let me just say that we are investing more in our operations and this kind of activity than ever before, and we are looking forward to finding some bad behavior, and we're going to do everything we can to change our policies or technology to prevent it. And this is something else that we're going to try to stop. You know, if we see our stuff being misused, we'll change it. I want to also kind of share a little bit of how this happens. You know, we design products for the honest user that has a problem to solve, and sometimes these products are then misused by people that aren't honest. And typically when we design them, we try to plug any obvious and gaping holes that we are aware of, but the nature of security is that bad actors will find ways to thwart you. And so, you know, we are looking back at all of our products and are trying to see, did we leave loopholes? Did we leave mistakes in there? And we're trying to go close those holes and fix them. And this is one of those. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. Broadly, I want to say that when you guys report to us what you see that you think might be that bad behavior, we appreciate it, because we don't want bad behavior. We want to clear it out. So if you guys see a pattern that looks like bad behavior, let somebody know, and we'll look into it. We now have a whole team working on getting rid of this stuff. Next question. Will these changes entail lowering the rate of pay for Revvers? No, these changes have nothing to do with pay rates for Revvers. Next question. How does Rev plan to further increase security? Brian, why don't you tackle this one?
Yeah, certainly. So there's always a balance to be cut between implementing greater security controls and minimizing the risk while still enabling our Revvers to be successful for our customers. And so that's something that we're always going to consider and make sure that we have a very measured approach.
Yeah, I think that, you know, I can't promise you that we'll never have a security change that annoys you. I'm sure at some point in the future, Brian will have a new change and some of you won't like it. That's likely to happen. We're going to try to find the right trade-off between we are going to raise the bar. I think Brian said it well at the top. Large companies have more security demands today than 10 years ago, right? Many of you guys have heard stories where Home Depot or Target gets hacked. It's a big problem, right? So security is top of mind for big companies. They're raising their bar. We're going to raise our bar. Some of that will affect you. We will do everything we can to listen and to make sure those changes have very little effect on people that are doing a good job. That's going to be our goal. And we'll look to you guys to tell us whether we're getting it right or whether we're off track. Brian, wanted to handle the next question on IP addresses.
Sure. So the question is, are Revver IP addresses tracked? It seems that this is a security feature that could stop fraud and protect us from having our accounts hacked into. IP addresses are monitored, and it is something that we use when we make blocking decisions on any activity. If we see any kind of malicious activity coming from a specific IP address, we definitely have the ability to do that.
Thank you, Brian. The next question is a weird one, and I'm going to answer it in an unusual way. I believe the author is confused and believes that Rev employees are in some ways hacking Revvers accounts or doing nefarious things to Revvers accounts, which I don't think is happening. I don't want to get too many specifics here because there's possible security issues underlying them, but I want to reiterate the advice I gave earlier. The best thing you can do to have good security is to use a unique password and to use multi-factor authentication, which is the thing, which means when you put your password in, you have to then get your phone to give you a number. And Robin or somebody after this call or Rye will send you a link on how you can do that. I'd encourage you to do it. If you guys use a unique password on your Rev account and multi-factor authentication, your security is going to be 1,000 times better than if you use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so I think the problems that this person thinks are happening are probably due to some Revvers having crappy password security. So improve your password security and you'll be in better shape. That's the advice here.
Yeah, on the same note, in the thread, it's enable two-factor authentication in the Help Center. And Jay Merrill actually shared in the forum thread where people are discussing the YouTube Q&A right now. So any help with that, it's in the Help Center, but yeah, we'll get other resources out to everybody.
Thank you, Rod. Next question about VPNs, Brian.
Yeah, so the question is, would it improve security if Revvers use VPNs, virtual private networks? And this is a great question. Really appreciate it. And while you do hear that VPNs, can improve security, and they do for personal use, they really don't do anything. Don't effectively increase security for Rev, for the Rev platform itself.
Thank you, Brian. Next question is about countries. This is a tricky one, and one that we're talking about now for the first time. I know folks have asked about this in the forum. A little background is, as I mentioned, we're getting far more applicants to work on Rev than we could possibly admit. Working on Rev is becoming more popular than ever, particularly in these times when you can't work in an office. And we have to make business decisions on who to admit, which Revvers from what country, and where and how. And when somebody applies, we don't know a lot, but we now have 10 years of experience of running this business, and so we've learned a lot over the time. And what we have found is that by studying data on customer happiness, we have found that customers typically have the best experience with Revvers from certain countries, and these countries are, I believe the list includes US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, I think Germany, and 1 or 2 others. We have found that when we admit Revvers from these countries, on average, the quality is high, and other indicators of behavior are better than from some other places. So we've decided that we are only going to admit Revvers from these countries. That's a decision that we've made. Somebody who asked somewhere else, hey, what if I travel? Doesn't matter if you travel. These kinds of, I don't believe this change should have any impact on Revvers working today. We don't want to give anybody a hard time. We're making a quality control decision as for where we admit future Revvers. And we're going to keep making these kinds of decisions. And again, our top level focus is always, we want to create more good jobs. We want more volume of high quality work, which means we need happy customers. And the decision to focus on certain countries is based on the quality of work delivered to customers from those countries is on average higher. And so that's the rationale there. Next question. It's somewhat related. Well, let me first, Brian. I'm gonna steer this question to you with regards to ID verification. So, ID verification is coming up. Brian, what would you say about does Persona operate outside the U.S.?
It does, and there's lots of ways that verification outside of the U.S. Can be done. So there's international passports that are acceptable for verification.
Look, that's right, and our effort here is, we believe that, as we said at the top of the call, that the most significant change we can make for security at Rev is to validate who Revvers are, identification. And so our focus on getting identification and getting it right, regardless of where you are. There's a separate decision we're making, which is that for new Revvers, we're only making new Revvers from those, I believe, 8 countries. So those are the changes that we're making here. Next question. I'll take this one. For those without photo IDs, we're not comfortable submitting them to Rev. If we have them, how will this pan out? Will we lose our positions? If I understand the question correctly, the answer is yes, right? ID verification is going to be optional, not required. So it's something you need to do to continue working at Rev. Again, if there's good reasons that you can't do it, let us know. We haven't heard any yet, but if there are some, we will, of course, consider them. Looks like that's the end of our questions for today. As I said, this was our second Q&A this year. We'll do at least one more this year, hopefully 2 more. They will not be about security. They can be about whatever else you guys want to talk about. So again, please email me or whoever your contact is at Rev, but I love hearing from folks about what topics you'd like to hear about, and we will try to make sure that our next Q&A addresses the things that are top of mind for all of you. Again, if you don't use 2-factor authentication, please do. If your password is the same password you use on 20 websites, please change it. Password security makes a big difference. It'll help you, it helps the company. Feel free, as always, to email me anything you want me to hear. I read every email and reply to many of them. We'd love to hear from you all, as always. Thank you guys for your time, and hope everybody has a great rest of the week.